Hi, my name is Harris. I'm one of your podcast hosts. I'm also a lawyer at Treadstone Law. For most Canadians, buying, selling, or refinancing real estate, a lawyer is the last thing on their mind. That's unfortunate because lawyers play a vital role in the process. But what choices do Canadians have? Lawyers can be very expensive. Well, Treadstone Law offers resources to Canadians so they have access to the information they need. Whether you sign up for a live workshop or a mailing list, we cover topics to help you make informed decisions and avoid costly mistakes. It's advice you can start using today, and best of all, it's free. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click the link below to get access right now. If you're looking to retain Treadstone Law, it's never been easier. Our entire process is online. From completing the retainer agreement to your signing appointment, everything is done from the comfort of your own home. We're your digital lawyers. The best part of it is that you don't pay anything when you're retaining our firm. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click on the link below to retain us right now. Enjoy the podcast. Welcome to another episode of Hustle and Grit. Today on my podcast, I have Natalia Jackson. Natalia is a mortgage broker at Oriana Financial with over 14 years of sales experience. She has always been fascinated with the psychology of sales. She wanted to use her sales skills and abilities to make a difference in people's lives. Becoming a mortgage broker has allowed her to do just that. With all of the new mortgage rules, there's never been a better time to have a mortgage broker on your side. Natalia works with various lenders to find the best products for her clients. She acts as an intermediary between the lender and the borrower. Whether you're purchasing a home, looking to transfer a mortgage, or refinancing an existing mortgage to consolidate debt, Natalia can help you find the best mortgage solution for your needs. Welcome to the podcast, Natalia.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Sounds like me in a nutshell.
I was going through your history. You've got a rich history. It sounded like you were in the mortgage industry your entire career. You kind of transitioned over. So to kick things off, why don't you kind of get our listeners to go through what it was that got you into the industry? What kind of was your moment where you're like, you know what, I want to become a mortgage broker, and what you were doing before that?
Of course, of course. I was actually a mortgage agent when I was in my early 20s, I think 2021. Quite a
Mm-hmm.
stressful job, especially when you're just starting out, trying to figure out what you want to be when you grow up. So I took the job, was doing pretty, I was doing pretty good, but I found the stress really weighing down on my shoulders. A lot of clients, anyone who's ever done a mortgage transaction themselves could find that there's some stressful situations. So at the time, I actually got a call from a headhunter at Rogers Corporate offering me a nice salaried position. So 21-year-old me really liked the idea of a salary and
Mm-hmm.
no more stress. So I did the corporate gig for a little bit there, transitioned, moved my way up the ladder in Rogers Corporate for about 5.5 years when I decided that I don't really like the corporate politics. I wanted to see what I could do to work for myself. So I actually started a business wholesaling vehicles all across Canada, which is
What?
fantastic. Yes. So
That's
going
not
up to
on
the
here.
rural, yeah, which was great because I do love to travel. So I saw so much of our beautiful country. A
Yeah.
really kind of niche job opportunity as well because I would go out to the small communities in the middle of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
like really northern Quebec or Manitoba or Toronto places. Sorry, not Toronto. There's a lot of car dealers in Toronto. Um, Thunder Bay, for example, places where
Yeah.
there's not a lot of car dealers, not a lot of options, and make relationships with the mayors and the people that matter in the community to get actually cars delivered up there, which was great. I actually was able to help a lot of people get a vehicle, but I wanted to kind of settle down and be home. Sometimes that job entailed, as you could imagine, a lot of traveling. So I was on the road 3 weeks, 4 weeks out of the month, every day sometimes. So I was
Yeah.
this was about 6 years ago. I was like, what do I want to be when I grow up? So full circle, mortgage agent came back, and I was at a place in my life that I could definitely manage the stress of becoming a mortgage agent and using my ability in sales to help people, guide people in a in the make a good
Yeah.
decision about the mortgage,
So,
right?
so what made you consider it again? Because you're saying like, you moved out because it was stressful, and I can understand it's very stressful because sometimes you take it on yourself to be like, I really need to get this client a mortgage, and whether their financial situation allows or not, they're under a lot of stress. You kind of really feel it throughout the entire process. So, what made you go from, like this is a stressful, I'm going to go into Rogers, which is again, like you said, a cushy job where it's salary. You're not really worried about Rogers going out of business the next day,
Yeah.
to
You
kind
know,
of
the
jumping right back
Verizon
in.
coders, I mean, maybe they're telecom needs,
Yeah.
but
So then what
um,
made you kind of consider coming right back and saying, all right, you know what? I kind of want to do this again.
I was at a point in my life where I wanted to use my abilities to help people,
Mm,
something impactful. And I found being a mortgage agent and then now broker definitely gave me the platform to do so.
yeah.
Being, of course, it's still stressful, but 27-year-old me was able to handle stress a little bit better
Yeah.
than 20-year-old me as well. And doing everything, doing Rogers and just finding, yeah, I paid the bill. It was great, comfortable. Obviously, Rogers isn't going anywhere, even with all of their annual blackouts. I
Yeah.
think they're still not going anywhere. Just gave, being a mortgage broker gave me a platform to use my abilities to improve
Yeah.
people's lives and give me something fulfilling. And yes, now it's stressful, but now having the ability to guide my clients through the stressful process and making it less stressful for them makes it even more meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, it could be there's a stress part, but it's also fulfilling because you're also taking stress
Exactly.
out of a lot of situations. So, and it's
And
not far from, I would, yeah,
after doing it for
sorry
so
about that.
long, you just turn to trust in your abilities even more. It being now 6.5 years of doing it consistently full time, there's been every stressful situation you could probably imagine, and I've always pulled through and got the job done for my client. So I know every time I
Yeah.
say I'm going to do something, I do it. First couple years, it was like not being able to sleep at night, hoping I'm able to do it, and now I fall asleep well at night knowing I'm going to get the job done one way or another. So I think it comes
Yeah.
with experience as well, and speaking with confidence to my clients, and my clients know they can confidence in me that they call me if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is also a mortgage is no longer a mortgage. So when you're entering the industry, you could have all the education behind it, but it's so overwhelming because there's so many lenders, there's so many different products, and there's so many different people that will fit into different products, and to understand all of that is very overwhelming. That when you get that experience, I'm sure now as somebody's talking, you're kind of not categorizing them because that's I guess a bad word depending on how you look at it, but you can kind of figure out, you know what, based on what they're giving me, I'm going to go to these lenders, and this is the relationships I have, and this is where I can place them. You're kind of already figuring that stuff out.
Absolutely. I always think every client's a different puzzle. Every client has a different solution, and I don't realize how complex it actually is and how much knowledge there is because every bank has a different product and
Yeah,
every client has different needs. There's no one situation that's the same. And I realize that when I'm training my new agents, because I do have
yeah,
some things that I copy and paste, and they ask me, why don't you just copy and paste your lender notes? Because, the hundreds of applications I send out a year, there's no two situations that are the same. So lender
yeah,
notes are the notes that I give to the bank, kind of a synopsis of the client profile when it goes in for approval. And there's no
yeah,
there's no one situation that's the same. And now with the stricter rules, I mean, ever since the B20 rules that were implemented in 2017, as I'm sure you know, the rules have just become more
yeah,
and more strict. And the puzzles have just become more and more complex to put together for clients. So absolutely, there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of things to know on the front end, also the back end, because you want to ensure you're getting a good mortgage product for your clients. So things like prepayment,
yeah,
transferability, wording, all of that matters, right? And every single lender has different um,
yeah. I mean,
guidelines.
if somebody comes to me, I always say, and I love banks. We work with banks all the time. Being a real estate lawyer, we're looking at this at the last leg, and I still don't understand that financing part 100% that you guys go through. But I always say you need to get a mortgage broker because, I mean, I would get a mortgage broker if I'm going through a mortgage, because you can't just go to a big bank and say, hey, listen, this is what my situation is, because it's like going to a shoe store and saying, you know what, I've got a shoe size, like I need an 11, but the store doesn't have 11, they have 10 or 12. They're going to give you a 12. So I feel like that's what the banks are. They have great products, especially the bigger banks, but they're not for everyone, which is why you need to go and speak to a mortgage broker. And aside from that, what you just said right now, I feel like most people don't understand like the back end, where they're kind of just going in and saying, hey, what's the lowest interest rate? Lowest interest
Yeah,
rate's not the lowest
absolutely.
interest rate.
Exactly. There's a lot more to mortgages than just the interest rate, right? And that's absolutely what I tell my clients as well. I mean, I use a broker for everything. I have a broker for my cell phone, even though I
Yeah,
normally pick one provider. But I want to make sure I'm getting the best deal out there. You're not going to walk into a bank, and they're not going to let you know the bank right around the corner has a better deal
yeah,
for you or a better product
yeah,
for you. They're going to fit you into that size 12 shoe no matter what, because they of course
yeah,
want the business. Where opposed to a broker, it's a one-stop shop. You have access to most lenders in Canada, and if I don't have access to them, I do work with the banks that outside of I do refer business outside of the banks that I have access to as a broker, because my
yeah.
passion is making sure that I find the best mortgage product for my clients, whether it comes to me or sometimes I do refer. Sometimes their home bank does have a better option for them. Unlikely, but it does happen sometimes, right? So,
I mean,
you
I mean, even their home bank, I feel like it comes down to economics. If you're bringing a bank 100 mortgages a year, and I'm going every 5 years to the bank, who are they going to negotiate more with? I know it's not going to be me,
know,
because I just don't.
absolutely. And there's been many times I've had clients come to me with their renewal, and I've got them renewed at the same bank that they're with for a better rate than the bank has offered. So, as
Yeah,
you said,
no, and
economics,
that,
right? It
yeah,
costs the bank a lot less money to get business through brokers than even their own mortgage agents. They don't have to pay salaries. They
yeah.
don't have to advertise.
There's no stress on, but then there's also like, again, when they're negotiating with you, and they're negotiating inherently for 100 deals, because they know you're going to send them like whatever amount of deals you're going to send them. They're not just going for that one every 5 years. So they know that like
Exactly.
over the time I renew my mortgage every 5 years, you're going to be giving them a lot more business. They're going to be speaking to you differently. That's just unfortunately how it is. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. I would say fortunately, because that's just business, right? I would want somebody who's giving my business a lot of business. I would want to help them out. I would help the small guys out too, but you're just naturally paying more attention to the guys that are helping you out more. And the other thing is that I feel like with big banks, if somebody's done their job really well, 5 years from now when I go back, they're not going to be there. They're going to get promoted. They're gone,
Yeah,
and
that's
I see that
another
all,
thing, right?
and I
And if
see it
they
all the
didn't do their
time.
job really well, do you even want them working on your behalf anyways?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So if he or she is there 5 years after, I'm like thinking like, okay, what's going on here? It's nice that I don't have to re-explain myself, but then it's also kind of disconcerting as well. Whereas with a mortgage broker, I always feel like if you're doing your job really well, you're definitely gonna be there for 10 years from now, and you're definitely gonna be able to help me out. So there's never a transition, and it's not even just that. It's like, hey, I could get my first house, my second house, my investment house, my or investment property. I could get like a cottage, whatever it is. I can go to the same person and ask,
Exactly.
and they're
Yeah.
not going to be like, saying, okay, I only got this bank. You're giving me the best product, whichever bank has it, but they're very different things. Even though I'm the same person or the same borrower.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I would say too. Your mortgage, your way, right? I can give you three
Yeah,
different solutions for one property as opposed to one as well. And we can go through over the options together and see what suits you better, right? What's your 5-year plan? I really do,
yeah,
talk to my clients and find out where they want to be in 5 years as opposed to just giving them
yeah,
one product, right? Find out
yeah,
solutions where to pay down your mortgage faster. Are you planning on flipping? Are you planning on selling them? There's so much. And one thing that I learned very early in my career is don't just be good to your clients, but also be good to your banks and your lenders. So you have that
yeah,
rapport on both sides. And
yeah,
one thing
yeah,
that's really credited to my success and my ability to help my clients is being very well knit within the lender portion of the industry as well. So
yeah.
sometimes being able to do something with a bank that other agents or brokers can't, just based on that internal relationship that I have with the bank.
Yeah, so it's not even
And
just
that's
the borrower's reputation that kicks in, your reputation kicks in as well with the bank.
absolutely, absolutely.
So just
Trying to
changing,
be friends with everybody on both sides because
yeah,
I'm the middleman, right? I'm the
yeah,
person in the middle. So when I call my, we have management at banks, and I want to call them, and I pride on myself that most of these people, I've had coffee with, we've
yeah,
played around in golf together, so I can call them up and be like, hey, it was a great time playing 18. So I've got a pickle of a deal here that you need help with, right? And they come through. They come through based
yeah,
on their relationship.
yeah. I mean, it's very much a relationship game. But okay, so changing gears a little bit, I want to know basically if any of my listeners want to reach out to Natalia, her contact information, depending on where they're listening from, is going to be either on the side or below. But what is it like kind of working with you? Are you completely digital? Are you in person? What's kind of, because I know with COVID, a lot of things have changed. And so what's kind of your entire process? If somebody wants to take out a mortgage with you, what's the journey from beginning to end?
Absolutely. And I always say, what my client wants, my client gets. Lately, my clients don't want to see me anymore, which is, it's bittersweet. I do miss the old school, hey, how are you? Handshake, let's sit down and chat about different options. But it's really evolved ever since COVID. I do offer in-person appointments as well. I have a Guelph office and a Woodbridge office, but I have to say, ever since probably the past 2 years, I've had two clients want to see me in person, and one of them is like, I don't know, that's a little bit of a drive. Let's just do this online.
Yeah.
So the online application process is very popular nowadays. So what would happen is we would have an introductory conversation. First, I go answering any questions that the borrower may have, whether it be, a first-time purchase, a refinance, a transfer, purchase and a sale. I mean,
Hmm.
there isn't a mortgage transaction I have met that I won't do. So everything from
Yeah.
residential to commercial. So we have the introductory conversation, and then my office would send out an application link, which the client can fill out on their PC or their cell phone, whatever's easiest for them. I then get the application, I analyze the information, have a follow up conversation with the clients. Once again, I'll always answer any questions they have, and I'll have a couple follow up questions. Then I will send them a credit consent form, which allows me to refresh their credit in order to provide mortgage financing. And I'd also send them a document request sheet. Documents can be scanned to me, faxed to me. Once again, always happy to see clients in person. Then get the application. I have the credit. I have all the income documentation, and then we can proceed with the mortgage products that me and the client both believe are the best for their needs. And
Okay.
that's kind of standard, whether it be an equity takeout, a construction loan, somebody wants to renovate their kitchen,
Yeah.
first time buyers. And my turnaround is typically within 24 hours.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. So are you doing well when you're meeting? Are you doing a Zoom call, or is it a phone call? How do you speak to people who don't want to come into the office?
Zoom call or a phone call. I always give the client the option.
Okay. And then once like the application and you've got all the documentation, then within 24 hours you can give them a list of options as to what kind of lenders they have as potential people or potential lenders that they can uh, pursue a mortgage with. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So, like I said, every situation is different. So, the documents, of course, the credit will paint a better picture. So, I always tell my clients that you need three things to qualify for a mortgage: you need
Yeah.
income, down payment, or equity, and credit, whether it be good credit or bad credit. But you do need those three things kind of paint a picture. So, once my picture is painted, I can then present it to the client and discuss different options.
Yeah. No, I know
Personal.
that. Yeah. So I know that like after COVID, even we're kind of in the same situation as a law firm where nobody comes in. Before you had people coming for an hour, and now everybody wants to get everything done in 15 minutes during the lunch break, which is convenient, and not a lot of brokers have kind of signed up to that. A lot of people kind of like, you know what, I still want to see people in person. I think times are changing, and the entire industry has to change where you're able to see people whether you like it or not, like we're doing right now. We're all in our own offices, and we're kind of having a discussion. It's a meaningful conversation. It's personable. Doesn't mean that we're not getting any information across, but we don't have to see each other in person to get a kind of conclusion to whatever lending or borrowing needs I may have.
And I find that's what the consumer wants. And that's why I say, what my client wants, my client gets. Absolutely. If they want to come in and see me, they can. If they don't,
Yeah.
that's, pretty soon there's going to be an app that will do what we can do. Not like we can do, because I think you'll also always need that personal touch, right? That
Yeah.
rapport that I have with the banks and the clients. And I would
Yeah.
never trust a algorithm to take care of my financing needs. But there's a lot of
Yeah.
technology out there, so I just find that you need to give the consumer what they want, and it has evolved. I remember in the middle of COVID, I had an older couple that I was arranging a reverse mortgage for. They were in their 70s. They preferred the
Mm.
in-person interaction. So even with COVID, I went over, we masked up and sat down and did the presentation for them, discussed everything with them. We found a mortgage product that made them happy. I left, and then we once again did the second signing meeting. I mean, before there used to be 2 to 3 meetings, an hour each, not to mention the commute for the borrower and myself. So
Mm.
that same couple, the next time we did a reverse mortgage transaction, they wanted to take out a little bit more money to go on vacation and pay themselves a little bit of a salary with their equity. So we did another transaction for them. And even that couple's like, do you mind if we just do this online? I was on the phone with her teaching her how to sign documents on her cell phone. And it's what the
Yeah.
people want. Finding it, I used to think it was just let's say our generation, but now I find all generations, everybody wants, baby boomers, everybody wants to do everything
Yeah. I think
online.
people are getting more comfortable with the idea of doing something over the internet and trusting the person on the other end and all of that. Because I feel like when you see people, you trust them. I think that's just a human thing that we need to see people, which is also why I feel like all these tech apps, they're good. They can increase productivity, but they can never replace the human element. And also the fact that we have, for example, we can't to this day get down the fact that like when a lot of buyers, for example, they will go online, they'll say, you know what, I use a mortgage calculator, I can afford $5 billion to go buy a house. Not really, right? Because that 60-second calculator can give you a number, but you would know better than I would. Every dollar of income is not a dollar of income. Depending on how you get it, depending on where it's coming from, how often, where it's sitting, all of these things matter a lot in terms of what kind of mortgage you can get. So technology is good, but the human element, this is all why I always say reach out to a broker because it's easy to kind of, especially when you want to buy a house, you want to be like, you know what, I want to be able to afford the biggest house I possibly can. So when somebody throws a
Yeah,
big number at you, you're more prone to kind of, because you want to believe it, it feels good.
yeah.
Whereas a broker is going to give you some hard advice.
Or there's, the other way to look at it as well. Some people go in those online calculators and only get $100,000 mortgage because they don't look at different ways to write the mortgage either, right? So you're either
Yeah,
approved for too much or not enough. And like I
yeah,
said before, I would never trust an algorithm with my family's financial future,
yeah.
right?
Yep, and it's because it's not like I mean people are kind of taking mortgages as a product. Yeah, it's like a chocolate bar, you get one, and if it tastes good, it doesn't. You get another one. I don't like it's that's not it. Okay, it's like over
It's a
15,
very
20.
expensive way. That's a very expensive chocolate bar.
Yeah, I mean, even housing, when people were buying houses in during the COVID, people were not really looking into financing conditions or even looking at the houses. They were kind of blind bidding above, and they weren't even talking to brokers. And so when we had certain situations where people were coming to us and they're like, you know what, we weren't approved for a mortgage. I'm like, well, you should have figured that I can't do anything. You're
I know
already
these
in an
people already
agreement,
up. Even
right?
as a broker, I mean, the past 2 years were a little bit stressful, but all my realtors, they know,
Yeah,
let me do the approval. They don't want to waste their time either with clients, and not even waste their time, but people can get in serious trouble if they put a $50,000 deposit down going in firm and
yeah,
not getting a property. So I had all of my realtors send me clients first to do a pre-approval. But
yeah,
these pre-approvals I just did, and here's my certificate, here's my gold stamp of approval that you're pre-approved, go in firm. And I didn't have my 5 days to do my job and ensure I got financing for my clients. So that was a little
yeah,
bit of a stressful 2 years because, hey, I'm human. If I made one mistake, didn't realize, maybe
yeah,
the social insurance number started with a 9 and we're looking for a new to Canada program,
yeah.
something like that wouldn't be very good for the clients as well. So I'm happy that we're in a little bit more of a fair market, also a buyer's market where buyers do get their 5 days of condition of finance. There's 7 days to do a home inspection. And I can't even imagine what these clients didn't find in the past 2 years going in firm, because now that all of my purchase and sale agreements, have a condition of finance, that's still not a problem. I thankfully in the past 2 years, when I told somebody to go in firm, they're good to go. But the conditions, the inspection, I've had clients calling me with all these different issues that they weren't able to find. So now we're switching, these insured mortgages. Instead of just doing a purchase, we're doing a purchase plus improvements. So now the buyers have the
Uh,
opportunity to go in there, do the inspection, figure out that there is maybe a major issue with the property, and then go back to the seller and say, hey, there's going to be a $20,000 repair that we need to do on this property. Can you bring the price down? Most sellers do agree, especially since it is a little bit more of a buyer's market.
yeah.
Uh, then we typically I typically like to switch my client into a purchase plus improvements, because yes, they're going to bring down the price $20,000, but they're paying you in equity. They're not actually paying you in the funds that you need to get the work done,
Yeah.
to get your house into the condition you expect.
So I mean, I would say, even though a lot of people are saying it's a buyer's market, I would say it's more of a fair market because,
I would say it's a fair market,
yeah,
yeah.
because it's not like the buyers can go in and say anything and the sellers are desperate to push. Sometimes you'll find a seller that's desperate. That's in any market, depending on their particular circumstances. But overall, people are still kind of holding. I feel like it's more, before you'd go in, you'd bid blindly over listing, and you didn't know what issues the house had. I mean, and you're pricing it to a perfection where the house is perfectly maintained, and this is the arbitrary market value. And then I've had lots of people coming back saying, hey, the basement's leaking. I'm like, well, you bought it
Yeah,
as is. There's no warranties on
there's
this.
nothing you can do, yeah.
Yeah, but this thing that you said, where you could have purchase plus improvements. So I haven't heard of that. Could you kind of elaborate on that? Like, what does that mean? So if I get a house, I buy a house for $1 million, I can get 100,000 on top of that. Like, how is that calculated? Like, what happens there for purchase plus improvements?
Well, it depends on the bank that you're using. The only purchase plus improvements I typically do are insured mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
Means, first of all, not to get too complex about an insured mortgage, because there's lots of
Yeah.
stipulations behind it. But one thing would be that the property does have to be under $1 million.
Okay.
But a purchase price improvements, for example, let's say you buy a property, and let's say the inspection passed, but you wanted a new kitchen for the property.
Mm-hmm.
You either buy the property for $500,000, you put your 25% down, which would be 5%. Um, and you also want to add a $25,000 kitchen renovation to the property. So you could definitely do that. What you would have to do is get a quote first for the kitchen, go to Home Depot or a contractor, have them come in, tell them what you want, new flooring, new appliances, countertops, everything. Get them to draft up a quote document. I would then present that to the lender and say, hey, client would like a purchase plus improvements project. So what they're doing now is they're adding that $25,000 to the mortgage, but they're holding the funds until the
Mm.
work is done. So the
Okay.
mortgage rate, you're right away paying interest on that additional $25,000. And then you have, typically 3 months. I have been lucky to get some extensions, depending, especially now with COVID renovations. After COVID, renovations take more than 3 months. So after the renovations are done, the lawyer has the funds in holding. You then
Yeah.
send an appraiser into the property to show the bank that the work has been done, it's satisfactory to the bank, and then they release the funds.
Oh, so that's a pretty good feature for people who are buying a house, and everything is, because you can never find the perfect home. I think a lot of first time home buyers are acting or behaving as if they're buying their last home, and if you get that
Yeah,
first home and there's certain things that you want to change, this is a perfect way to kind of move, and instead of putting that deposit into the house, you're and refinancing later on or whatever, however other way you can get it. This is a cheaper alternative, I'm assuming, to just keeping that deposit essentially. I mean, it's not exactly keeping the deposit, but putting that back into the house.
absolutely. And then you get a great return on your investment, right? I mean, a $25,000
Yeah.
kitchen renovation, even in this market, is probably going to make the house go up at least double, what you invested in. I'd say at least an extra 50K even in this market, which is good for first-time home buyers with a lower budget that are looking
Yeah.
to buy a property, because they want these properties with these beautiful kitchens that are out of their budget. Or
Yeah,
they can get a
yeah,
property with a 50-year-old kitchen that's falling apart, put the
yeah,
money into it. Not only does the property go up in value, they have their, dream property with their dream kitchen. I've
yeah,
had a lot of situations like that, especially when it was definitely a seller's market and homes were going like hotcakes and they were extremely expensive.
yeah.
Clients bought fixer-uppers, but they didn't have to fix them up over the course of 5 years. They were able to do the renovations within a couple of months and get the money back from the bank.
It's immediate, yeah. I mean, that sounds amazing. I mean, I haven't heard of it. If again, if any of the my listeners want to reach out to Natalia for this, obviously we're just kind of covering I always give this caveat just because I'm a lawyer. This is not advice for anyone. I always encourage people to reach out and kind of understand the details about the products that we do talk about. So I'll have Natalia's contact information on the side or below. Again,
Just to
I
give
want to.
a quick little, tidbit on how I utilize this product recently, which is also good to know. I had a client go in for an inspection. Turns out there is an issue with the septic system, which is a huge issue in the property. Good thing they were able to get an inspection because that's something you wouldn't be able to find out,
Yeah,
last year when you had to go in for
yeah,
one. The buyers wanted a $20,000 price decrease, which the sellers did grant them, which is great, but they paid them in equity. They can't take that $20,000 and
yeah.
pay the septic contractor. So that's another opportunity where I use the product, purchase less improvements, give them that $20,000. We'll hold that $20,000 for them until they're done the work, and then the bank pays them. The lawyer releases the funds. So
So
it's a great product in many different
yeah.
facets.
So if an inspection comes out deficient, because I'm assuming this inspection was deficient, because that it wasn't like there was something wrong with the septic tank, the
Correct.
bank would then still forward the money and have allow you to fix all of this while you go in and negotiate a lower price.
Correct. I mean, there was a Band-Aid solution. The septic tank
Yeah.
was still working, but the inspector said that it would have to be changed eventually. So
Okay.
I gave that information to the bank. It's still working, but it's something that the clients would have to do in the next couple of years. They're able to negotiate the price down $20,000. Would you be willing to do the purchase plus improvement mortgage
Yeah.
product on it? And it's a double layer. It has to be insured by, approved by the bank and also the mortgage default insurer.
Okay. So this is you're leveraging up to 95% or 90%.
Correct.
What's
I mean,
the
you
exact?
could even do
Yeah.
100, say you would use Sagen or something. Since they're holding the funds until the work is complete, you could even finance 100% of the property.
Yeah. I mean, I find this to be in a lot of ways win-win situation because if you put in the money, and correct me if I'm wrong, the value of your house is going up. Your interest rates tend to be lower when it's an insured product. So and you get to look at your house properly and change certain things to your liking without worrying about, you know what, in 5 years down the line, I'm gonna have to refinance this and maybe I get enough money and there's all these other costs involved with refinancing that you can just kind of do now and just make the house closer to what you want it to be as opposed to just kind of settling.
Absolutely, and it's a good point. Refinancing is, and it's not an insurable product. Anything that's insurable, which we could touch on one day, but that's a whole
Yeah,
other podcast. But
yeah,
refinancing is not an insurable product. So a refinance is typically half a percentage higher. So you're paying a lot
yeah.
higher rate as well down the road. So
So you're also hoping that if you do refinance, the house price has gone up and you've paid down enough so that you can
you can
refinance or
do
you
it
have that
exactly.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this way you're
Okay.
getting, your dream home, and you can get your own kitchen, a customized kitchen instead of a kitchen that someone else did. For example, I love to cook, so I keep using kitchen. But we could
I mean, the kitchen.
bathroom, man's
Yeah.
cave, anything.
Eh. I think kitchen and bathrooms are the biggest return on investments too. So those are things that you want to kind of go into right away because as much as I'd love a man cave, it's not going to be giving me any kind of return on investment.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I want to change gears. Last kind of topic of conversation. I know that the market's kind of all over the place right now, and I kind of want to touch upon buying and selling houses. So if you're in the market of selling your existing home and buying another one, I know previously people went in very confidently, and actually we've had some clients who misstepped because in March they felt that, you know what, my house is going to be sold no matter what. So I'm going to go in firm with this house that I want to buy because I don't want it to get out of my hands because I know I'm going to sell 2 weeks later, and it didn't happen. But what was happening for the past 2 years prior to that was people were buying buying confidently, knowing that as soon as they list their house, they could sell. And it was to some extent probably, now I'm not going to say better, but they were incentivized to sell later because you were just getting a little bit more appreciation or whatever it was, so that you got a little bit more money for your house if you sold after you bought. How has that changed now with what's going on with increasing interest rates? What are you kind of seeing on your end in terms of what best practices may be now for buying and selling homes if you're selling your home to buy another home?
I would definitely suggest selling first, having
Yeah.
that firm purchase and sale agreement first, because you're right, it has shifted. Before you could list your house, it could be sold. I mean, it could be sold even before it was listed, right? Some realtors present the property to another realtor before it even hits the market and it's sold.
Yeah.
Homes were going like hotcakes. And now homes are sitting for, a couple weeks on the market. So you don't want to have that stress, because if you buy another house and you don't sell your house, or you don't even have a firm purchase and sale agreement on your house before you have to move into the other one, typically you can't qualify for both mortgages, or you don't have the down payment for the next house. So one
Yeah.
thing I would definitely recommend, especially in this market, is sell your property before buying another one, and definitely speak to a mortgage professional and get pre-approved. Because people think, hey, I'm approved for a $700,000 mortgage on this house. Obviously, I can get a
Yeah.
$700,000 mortgage on the other house. But it's not like that anymore because the interest rates went up. So kind of a quick 101 on mortgages. On my side as a mortgage broker and every single bank in Canada, especially in the A space, there's a calculation called a gross debt service ratio, which
Hmm.
means that no more than 39% of your income can go to your property taxes, your mortgage payment, and your heat and condo fees if applicable. So that 39% I have to calculate on today's rates plus 2%. So now, since today's rates have gone up almost 3% in the past year, that would bring my ratio down because I'm now calculating you on a higher mortgage payment.
Okay.
So if you were able to, get approved for a $700,000 mortgage last year when rates were about 2%, chances are you're not going to be approved for that mortgage this year.
So are you advising people to then visit the mortgage broker prior to like listing their house even so they kind of get an understanding of what their entire situation is?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even if your mortgage is portable, you could take a
Yeah.
mortgage from one property to another, and you do the math. They're like, I'll list for 1 million, I'll buy for 1 million. That's the exact same price. I'll just take that mortgage over. I don't need a mortgage broker. But that mortgage is portable upon qualification. And the interest rates more than doubling definitely impacts your qualification. And people
Wait.
don't necessarily even think about that, right? I'm
Yeah.
approved for this mortgage now. Why wouldn't I be approved for this mortgage, next month?
So, okay, hold on. So this is something that's new for me as well. So when you're saying portable, um, essentially portable does not mean the same mortgage kind of moves over. It means that we're going to requalify you on the interest rate as well. So if I have a fixed, if I'm 3 years into a fixed term that has a portable clause to it, I don't know if they do, but if there is one, and I'm paying like some really low interest rate, 3%, whatever it is, if I try to port it over, am I now, does the bank try to requalify me at like 6, 7, whatever rate they have right now, or can I move the 3% over?
See, if you're able to port penny for penny, which
Yeah.
has I've never, in my career been able to port a mortgage penny for penny, then you get that exact same mortgage and then you
Yeah.
qualify on that rate. But typically you do a port and increase. So then you're blending the rate that you had with today's best rate, which it's not going to be a 5.5. It might be around 4% right now, but
Oh.
it's still not, let's say, the 2% you had last year.
Okay, so when you're blending, then okay, this is something else too. This is news. I'm learning a lot today. A lot of times I have podcasts with brokers. We're talking about stuff that I feel like I'm in my comfort zone. Today, I'm really like learning a lot. So with this
All right.
blending,
Well, thank you for
um,
providing me the platform to not only teach you, but teach our listeners as well.
so when you're blending, you're saying, let's say I've got like $500,000 mortgage for 3%, and I need another 200,000 hypothetically, and that's coming at 6%, whatever the rate is. So they would
Yep.
blend it proportionately to the amount of mortgage I have for 3% and the amount of mortgage I need at 6%, and I get somewhere near 5%. Is that what you're kind of suggesting?
Yeah, each lender has different, blending kind of options, but that's
Yeah,
a good way to look at it. And the blended rate kind of changes from day to day based on today's best rate and where the client is in their mortgage schedule. So I don't want to
yeah,
overcomplicate things, but I have a great example of a client that had that one of those great 1.995 year fixed mortgages. They
yeah,
just sold and bought another property. They did top up their mortgage by, I think they needed $250,000. The best rate that the banks had at the time were 4.99, so they were able to get a 3.79% mortgage, so kind of in the middle. So that's a benefit.
yeah,
You get to take advantage of last year's lower rates instead of being in that 5%. Another benefit is that typically you don't have to pay a penalty to break that mortgage since you're porting it over.
yeah.
And
Wow.
that's
So
why,
this is something.
and I'm
Go ahead.
glad you're learning, but that's why it's good to use a broker, right? Because I know
Yeah, I was about to say that.
because a lot of people don't know that they sell, they pay that $10,000 mortgage to break their mortgage, and they're back up to these higher rates. So there's so many different things that you could do with your
Yeah,
mortgage. And I always tell my clients, your mortgage your way. Literally, let's talk about it. Where do you see yourself? Oh, you're selling,
yeah.
you're buying. These are your options, right? There's so much and so many options
But
out there.
this is also why I say you need a mortgage to begin with. Even the first mortgage, if somebody was like, you know what, I want the lowest rate, you're not going to get a portable mortgage. Whereas if your broker told you you need portability, may have you're maybe paying $5 extra a month or whatever it is, because I'm assuming it's not the same cost. It's worth the price because now I mean, that makes it such a better market for people who do want to upgrade a house because prices are also kind of coming down. You're flatlining, you can negotiate, you can do so much. And if that means that you're only paying a higher interest rate on the additional amount that you need to borrow. And of course, there's nuance. I totally expect there to be nuance because nothing is straightforward. The mortgages or finance products or a lot of this stuff because it's a very nuanced product. And so, but for layman's terms, like it's like if you can take on that extra, I think it's so worth it because prices right now are awesome. And I don't think, even though people feel like the interest rates are going to go up forever, they're not. And as soon as the market kind of flattens off, I feel like real estate prices are going to not be, maybe they're not going to be going up 20-30% a year, definitely not, but they're not going to be where they are right now. So as soon as we get that breathing room, I think it's going to be harder to negotiate prices. Right now, it's an amazing time
Absolutely.
to go in. But yeah,
No,
no,
absolutely. And
that's
like you said, it's a fair market right now, and it's an amazing time to go in.
yeah.
And
I'm
that's why
telling
I
everybody.
have those probing conversations with my clients, right? It's not just, hey, you're a client, this is a mortgage. I really want to find out where they're going to be in the next couple of years and what their plans are, because all of that
Yeah,
makes a difference. It's a big loan, and I
yeah.
find that people know more about their car loans than they do their mortgages. And the mortgage is probably the
Yeah,
biggest loan you're going to have in your life, unless you buy a yacht or something. But
yeah. I mean, but for a majority of us Canadians, 95%, I think mortgage is the biggest thing that we've got. So
yeah,
fair enough. Fair to say, again, and I'm going to wrap it up with this. Brokers, I always suggest brokers, they guide you through, and I wouldn't even just say go to a broker and be like, hey, listen, I need the cheapest rate. You want the best product that's going to create the most wealth over your entire life. It's not about just getting the cheapest rate because if you didn't get portability, like you just explained, it's going to cost you a lot of money to do anything. Now you're stuck. Right, and life happens. You maybe want a bigger house. You got kids that you weren't planning on. You got a different job. I don't know what's going on, right? And you need to move. So things happen. But you know what? Yeah, thanks for coming on. If anybody wants to reach out to Natalia, I'm gonna have her contact information on the side or below. Definitely reach out. And yeah, I think we talked about a lot. And so if anybody's planning on buying, and I'm always saying, if you guys are planning on buying, don't wait for the market bottoming out because if you know where the bottom is, we're going back up and you need to prepare. So you always get in touch with brokers, get your finances right so that you can buy the property that you need and you're well aware of it ahead of time. You're ahead of the game. You're not reacting to anything happening. But yeah, Natalia, thank you for coming on. Any last words?
no, thanks for having me. It was a great platform to educate some of our clients. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, I know we went through a lot. I'm always here and happy to help.
Yep.
Thanks
Thank you
again.
for coming on. Thank you.
Okay.